After a disgruntled landlord had his property trashed by a Section 8 tenant, he swears he'll never use Section 8 again. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and it's all about Section 8. Now, all the time I talk about the reasons why landlords they don't want to participate in the Section 8 program, and some of it has to do with the government bureaucracy, but a lot of it has to do with the tenants themselves. The tenants themselves, they treat your property like garbage. They just don't respect it. They're a lot of the times they are bottom of the barrel tenants, okay? The ones who can barely afford the rent, and that means you're going to have a higher incidence of problems when you're dealing with these tenants. Now, that's not to say that all Section 8 tenants are bad, but if you get a higher number of Section 8 tenants and they're causing problems, well, you're going to have a higher number of landlords who don't want to deal with the program. And that's exactly what's happened. So the article I have, it's a few years old now, but it's still very, very relevant. And that's why I'm bringing it up. And I figured that rather than hearing it from my perspective, right, you would like to hear it from a different landlord's perspective, and that's why I'm bringing you this story, and it's a bad story, okay, and this is something you don't want to hear about happening to any landlord, but I've heard these stories time and time again. Now, those landlords who choose to participate in the program, they know what they're doing, and I respect them for doing that because you know what? It's a hard job. It's a hard job being a Section 8 landlord. And it takes more time and patience than it does being a landlord of just regular tenants, in my opinion. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. If you're a landlord right now and you've dealt with the Section 8 program, comment down below, your experiences with the tenants, good or bad. Okay, I'm just curious to see what other landlords have dealt with when dealing with these types of tenants. Okay, but anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from the argusleader.com, and it says landlord wants more protections after rental trashed. And this article, it was written back in 2016, so it's about 7 years old right now. But like I said, it is still very relevant, and the same issues that existed back then with the program still exist to this day. So anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. A Sioux Falls landlord says a program for low income renters left him in the cold after a tenant trashed his property. Brett Songstad said he's unlikely to accept housing vouchers again after his experience, which he says will cost him thousands to cover, even after keeping the tenant's deposit for cleanup. The piles of trash, discarded toys and furniture, cat urine damage, and broken appliances will take him weeks to remove, repair, and clean. For a landlord with only a handful of properties and loans to pay each month, that lost income is a serious matter. And this is the perfect example of a small mom and pop landlord. He's got just a handful of properties. He has mortgages on all his properties. As I've mentioned before, the majority of landlords, I believe 59% of all landlords or all rental properties have mortgages on them. Okay, so most landlords they own less than I think less than three properties total, three rental properties. So we're talking about just the generic mom and pop landlord out there, and yeah, they've got bills to pay, and when we don't get paid our rent, we struggle sometimes making those payments out of our pocket. So we're using the rent payment to pay the mortgage. Now most landlords they do have some sort of emergency reserves, but that doesn't mean that we can forever be denied our rent payments and then still be able to pay our bills. No, that's just not going to happen. And so then we talk about the tenant here, and even with the security deposit will not cover all these damages. And I've experienced this many times myself. Okay, if your security deposit is a single month rent, I don't even care if you're in California, right? The tenant can do way, way more damage than that, and it's going to be very difficult to get any of that money back. Okay, so this is part of the reason why I'm just like, hey, I want to be able to put the best tenant into my unit possible, and I don't want to be forced to take Section 8 like a lot of the more recent laws are trying to do. I've been in the rental business for a long time, so I understand ordinary wear and tear, Songstad said. What I don't understand is destroy and desert. The tenant, Nina King, disputes that the damage was much more than ordinary wear and tear, especially for someone who cares for four children younger than 6 years old. She also says that Songstad allowed the place to deteriorate and that she asked to stay an extra day to clean up and was denied the opportunity to, a claim Songstad calls bogus. Yeah, and of course the tenant immediately starts coming out with excuses. Okay, we're talking about a tenant here, and remember, the landlord said there were urine stains, cat urine stains, like cat urine could make the entire place just stink, ruin, drywall, etc. So believe me, I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it before. It is nasty, it stinks, it's awful. And no matter if she had an extra day to clean or not, that's not going to clean up that cat urine smell. Okay? I mean, it's a complete joke. She's just making excuses. And at the same time, it's like, hey, we got broken appliances. And she's like, well, you didn't come in here and fix them. It's like, well, we can't fix what you don't report as broken. Okay. And you didn't report it as broken because you knew you were at fault for damaging this stuff and you were afraid of the consequences, which now you're going to have to face as you leave the house. So, yeah, I hear a lot of excuses, like, oh well, it's your fault all this stuff is broken. Like, no, this isn't normal wear and tear. Do you think a guy who has been in the rental property business for a long period of time, had lots of tenants, multiple different properties, doesn't know what normal wear and tear is? Give me a break. Ford refund. Oh no no no. If he would have just given me until the first, we would have everything cleaned up," said King. A back and forth between landlord and tenant over damages is not uncommon. What irks Songstad, however, is the lack of protection for landlords who participate in a voluntary program he sees as important for affordable housing. Sioux Falls Housing's Shireen Ranshaw said there's little her office can do for landlords in Songstad's position, and she stressed the risk is not unique for affordable housing. There's good and bad tenants and housing assistance, just like there are people who are not on housing assistance, Ranshaw said. The Housing and Urban Development voucher system offers rent assistance to people with low and fixed incomes, and the waiting list has an average of 400 names on it at any given time. Well, you know what? Here's my suggestion, right, for these voucher programs. Now, if the tenant trashes the property and owes the landlord thousands of dollars worth of damages, they need to lose that voucher. They don't deserve a voucher if that's the case. Period. Okay? Period. Either that or the voucher program itself can compensate the landlord for all of the damages done. That's my opinion. Okay. You said, hey, we're going to, this is their income. This is, we're guaranteeing that this tenant, uh, we're putting in your property. They come in, they inspect your property. You had to jump through all their hoops. And then they give you no sort of guarantee on this tenant. They don't give you any sort of protection against this tenant just trashing your place. And then they're going to continue to allow the tenant to have a voucher after they leave your place destroyed and leave you thousands of dollars in debt. What a joke. Okay? What a complete joke. And I'm against it. Okay? That's why a lot of landlords do not want to participate. And I can't blame them. Who are they going to go after for all these damages? These people don't have the money to pay the damages. So the people that we can go after, the people with actual jobs, that's who we want to put in our properties. If a regular person with a job, with a bank account, with actual money destroys our property, we can go the legal route and get their wages garnished. But if we're talking about some unemployed person who's living on government assistance, we're not going to be able to get anything out of that person. The program has protections for both landlord and tenant with strict requirements for housing quality and annual inspections for the tenant and a guaranteed rent payment and a contract with HUD for landlords. So, all the protections are for the tenant. They're not for the landlord. They're like, oh, it's a guaranteed payment for the landlord. Listen, I can get there's no such thing as a guarantee. That's the first part, right? But the way I see it is the Program is voluntary, okay? And I'm seeing so many municipalities, so many locations now across the entire country that are saying, hey, we want to force landlords to take Section 8, right? Well, this story here, this example is exactly why so many landlords, they've already been burned. They've already tried to help out. They've already tried to participate in the programs, and the programs have been a nightmare for them. And so now they're saying, no, no, I'm not going to do it. And the cities are, rather than trying to go and fix the programs, which would be the logical thing to do, fix the programs, figure out what's wrong with them, and how to incentivize landlords to participate, they say, no, no, we're going to force landlords to take them vouchers. Well, you know what? It's a complete joke.